What is up, Galaxians? Good morning, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast, live today from the Batcave. If someone in the chat could let me know if you can hear me okay. I haven't been over here in a while. So I'm struggling to get everything set up, but I think everything's working. So let me know if you can hear me. The last week, a couple people asked about my listing process, how I take photos of books, how I research books, and we've gone through this a couple of times here in the live, but I thought this was a good opportunity to get back over here to the Batcave and just do some listing and kind of show you what my process is. I will caveat all this by saying right up front, this is not the only way. It's not the right way. It's not the best way necessarily to do this. This is just a system that I've found that works for me and has led to what I would consider to be pretty reasonable success, particularly on eBay and on Etsy. So take that for what you will. Find some things maybe that you can use in your process. Watch some other sellers and how they do things, and kind of work with what you've got in terms of space and equipment to come up with the system that works the best for you. I'm a big believer, and I've said this on this show all the time, there's no one right way to do most of this stuff. Finding a system that for you is efficient and repeatable and is successful, more importantly, is the right way to do it. And whether that's how I do it or someone else does it or some combination of those things, that's up to you to decide. Let's get into the chat here real quick. Say a few good mornings. Media Picker won't be able to make the live today. Training on the new job. Have to catch the replay. Congratulations again on that new job. Miss Lachey, good morning. Always a pleasure to see you. Lord Jake Ryan, good morning. Mel Flipsit, welcome to the show. Judy Stop and Shop, good to see you. Thank you. Big Dre, thank you. I appreciate that. Sounds good. I never know. When I'm in the main studio, I've got headsets in and I can monitor and I can generally tell if it's working. But over here, I really don't have that. So Jim Lucas, welcome. Thank you. Chuck Witt, good morning. Good to see you. And Recommerce Dave, wow, early in the morning over there, or in the middle of the night, probably. What time is it over there? Missed you last night at the Whatnot show. I was thinking about you. Tamara Lynn, caught alive. Good morning. Thanks for coming by. So we're just going to jump right in here. I'm kind of walk you through kind of my setup here. I know some of you that have been coming around here have heard this song and dance before, but sometimes it bears repeating. So this is kind of my workstation down here in the Batcave, and I've got a couple of tubs here of books, things that I've acquired in some bulk purchases over the last few weeks that I'm going to work. I've not researched any of these. These are just raw tubs, boxes of stuff that I've acquired. I've come down here, so you're going to get to see the whole process from the initial look at the book to the research that I do and so on. Then you've got my photo booth here. I've got a white, it's like a cutting board. You probably can't see it in the video, but it gives a nice clean white background. It's easy to clean. I got it on Amazon. Works very well for me. I've got two LED lights and an overhead photo light to kind of give me some light balance. On the right here, I've got a scale. It's already got a bubble mailer on it. So when I'm done with my kind of the research and I've decided how I'm going to list it, I can weigh, and I've got a pretty good idea of the measurements after doing this for 5.5 years. So I'll get the exact weight. So that goes into the listing as well. That way there's no surprises at any point for being off on my weights. And then on the floor here, I've got another tub with some inventory locations already listed. So I will use that inventory location as the custom SKU on eBay so that I can find that later. It goes into the tub, and then tomorrow morning, I'll take that tub over to the warehouse. So if you have any questions, please feel free, leave them in the chat, and I'll be happy to try to answer them as I go through all of this. Cameron D, hey, welcome. Good to see you. So let's just get this thing started here. I am going to show you just right on my phone. It might, if you're watching on your phone, it's probably pretty tiny. So it might be a little difficult to see, but I'll just kind of walk you through the process that I do when I'm researching and listing an item. So this first book, W. Somerset Mom, Catalina. what's it say there? A romance. You can see right away this dust jacket is pretty rough. My take on the dust jacket is if it is not completely falling apart, I will leave it on the book and let the end consumer, the buyer, determine whether or not they want to keep it that way. Generally speaking, dust jackets add a lot of value. They do still add, in my opinion, some value even when they look like this, so I don't hesitate to keep them. I had one earlier that I was working on. You can see it is pretty well destroyed, so I took that one off and just listed the book by itself. But this one, it's rough, but it is fully attached, so we're going to leave it on there. Let's get in here and see what we've got. And I will usually just start with the title and see if there's a bunch of them, which in this case there probably are. I'm going to filter this. I just want to see hardcovers. So let's do category. I'm going to leave it as books, even though this is probably antiquarian and collectible. I'm just going to start with that so that I can get into hardcovers. There's only 15 according to eBay, so let's see what we got here. So this first one here, no picture, I ignore those. Now we're into some with photos, but no dust jackets. So I'm going to kind of keep looking here until I find one with a dust jacket. And I'm all the way down here to $29. Let's look at that one. That dust jacket's in even worse shape than mine. So that gives me some kind of an idea where I want to be. Kind of at the low end here with no dust jacket, I'm $4, $5, $6 plus shipping. With a dust jacket, suddenly I'm closer to 30. Let's take a look at some solds just for fun. No exact matches. So my gut instinct on that is $29 with the dust jacket is way too high because nobody's even bought one of these for $4 or $5 without a dust jacket. So I'm probably going to try to split the difference here. I'm not going to go that high, but I am going to price a little higher than those bare bone ones with no dust jacket. So I will just look here until I find one that I kind of like the title at least to see. Let's try this one. And I'll use this one as kind of my starting place. And then I'll just go down to sell one like this. And that'll give me at least a vague idea of a title and hopefully some item specifics that I won't have to do a bunch of corrections. Then we're going to take a bunch of photos. I always do a minimum of 6 on the outside and 6 on the inside. This one's going to get a few more because of the condition of this dust jacket. So I'll do the top, the front cover, then the spine. Because this dust jacket looks like this, I'm going to take pictures of those 2 spots of damage. And then I will just rotate it around, taking pictures as I go. I will take a picture of the back as well. I will usually take a picture of the inside of the dust jacket so I can get the flap. A lot of people will ask if the flap has been corner cut because that means it's a promotional copy. So I generally will try to take a picture of the inside of both the front and the back flaps to make sure that they're not cut. I will, if there's any writing, any names, anything in the front, I'll try to take a picture of those as well. I get the title page. The copyright page, again, this is a stated first edition, so that is helpful to know. And then I'll just take a random kind of sampling of the pages. I'm not one, as you can notice, that gets too pressed about my fingers being in the photo. I'm trying to hold the pages down. It is what it is. Here you can see there's a little bit of a separation here, kind of at the back end paper. So I'm going to take a picture of that. And then again, this back flap. So that one got 17 photos. My normal minimum on a hardcover is 12, but because of a few condition things, we went a little heavier with that one. Once those are all loaded, I'm going to look at my title here. Hardcover, I abbreviate to HCDJ. I think most book buyers know what that means. 1948, I think that was right. Yes, first edition. I'm going to change that to capitalized. And I've still got some room in the title. This is Doubleday, so let's put that in. And that should cover. So I'm going to copy all that because that's going to go into my description. I do not use the AI description. I don't like them. They're too fluffy. Now this one is actually in the books category. You could leave it there. You might move it to antiquarian and collectible. It's from the 40s. It's technically not really an antique, but it is theoretically collectible. I'm just going to leave it because this is a book that doesn't show any sales recently, so I don't think it's really all that crucial. So I'm going to leave it, but I'm going to mark it as acceptable condition, maybe. And then we get into the item specifics. If you've been following along on this channel for a long time, you know I'm a big believer in putting in as many item specifics as you can so that if somebody decides to filter by one of those, your listing has an opportunity to come up. So I'm going to fill out as many of these as I can. I've already got the author, the title, the language. This is too old for an ISBN, so it does not apply. Again, if you've been following along for very long, you know my take on the ISBN catalog on eBay is that it's horribly inaccurate, and I generally don't use them anyway, but this one does not actually even have one. Topic, romance, that's good enough for me. Publisher, Doubleday. Format is hardcover. Genre, romance again. Publication year is right. Features, they didn't put anything in features. This does have a dust jacket, even though it's not in great shape. Edition. Now this is an interesting one because it's a stated first edition, as we saw. The camera will focus. But it is also a Book of the Month Club edition. So this is a book club edition and a first edition. So you can't put both in there. So the book club piece will come in when I do the description. They have the type as a novel, but they didn't put in the narrative type. So that, again, gives me one up on that. Intended audience, I'm going to go with adults on this. Is it vintage? Yes. Theirs was inscribed, so I can clear that out. Mine is not. It's not personalized. It doesn't have any stickers or anything on the inside. Number of pages. They said 275. I always look to see if that's right, and it is. And then my custom SKU, which is where this box will be in the warehouse. Right now I'm working on box 239, -9. So that will help me find it if and when it sells. That might be a little optimistic, given that there aren't any sales, but we'll run with it. Then I paste in my description, Doubleday, and this is a BOMC Book of the Month Club edition. Condition is acceptable. You can see one of the reasons I list on mobile is because it auto-fills a lot of the stuff that you use regularly, so I can do these descriptions pretty quickly, which is the other reason I don't use the AI description, because I can create a brand new one faster than I can edit for errors the AI description. So condition is acceptable with significant wear and minor damage to dust jacket and light tanning of pages as shown. Now, if you're not familiar with those terms, the tanning of the pages, you can see those pages are no longer white. They're not really like bronzed, but they definitely have some age-related discoloration. So I do want to mention that in there. So I've covered pretty much everything that's wrong with this book. I've got that the dust jacket's got wear and damage, that it's a book club edition, and that the pages are tanned. I always put in how I'm going to ship it. This is going to ship with USPS Media Mail. Pricing, again, without dust jackets, starting $5, $6, $8. With dust jackets, it's $20. no sales in the last, whatever, 30 odd days or so. I'm going to go $12.99 with a best offer acceptable of 10 and just see what happens with this. Then I'm going to weigh it. Okay, it weighs with the bubble wrap, the bubble mailer, 15.3 ounces. I know I'm going to wrap that in newsprint for one additional layer of protection, especially given the condition of that dust jacket. So I'm going to call that 1 pound, 1 ounce, just to cover in case it goes over once it's wrapped for protection. It does raise the cost of the shipping, but I'd rather err on that side than end up having to eat whatever it ends up being, 75 cents in shipping. Put in the size, that's going to be a 10 by 9 by 1. And now you've got everything set up and ready to go. And I'm going to list it. And that is one down. And I will do that 20 to 40 times a day. That's how I get to 100 and whatever, 130 odd listings a week done. Now I will eventually, generally speaking, when I get to 10, I'll take a break and I'll go to the PC and I'll hop on List Perfectly and I will cross list these to the various platforms. Anything $12.99 and over that is vintage will go to both Etsy and Mercari. Anything that's less than that or is not vintage will just go to Mercari. Let me hop back here into the chat because it looks like it's been pretty busy. Oh, let's see here. Operating on eBay, the Batcave, yes. It's been a while since I've been over here. Tamara Lynn, Cameron, let's see. Lord Jake Ryan, where have you found to be the best lighting? Is it right above where you are taking pictures? I've got 3. So I've got 2 like LED desk type lights that I bought off Amazon, super cheap, down here that kind of illuminate in. And then I've got a fill light, which is just like a softbox photo light that I got also on Amazon. I bought a couple of these for the YouTube studio. One of them had some damage, so I messaged the vendor. Instead of just sending me the part that was broken, they sent me a whole nother light. So I jury-rigged the pieces that were broken and suspended this one from the ceiling so that I've got nice balanced light kind of all around so I don't get a ton of shadows. I do get, if I'm doing like CDs or DVDs or anything with like a shiny surface, I still get a little bit of reflection. If you go back and look at some of my listings, you can see a reflection of the phone kind of because of all the light. But having kind of all around light helps it stay even and not be kind of in shadows or anything goofy like that. So if you can do that, that to me would be ideal. Natural lighting is also obviously really good. There you go. How do you handle the glossy covers and reflection? I don't. They just are glossy and reflective. For the most part, because I'm generally holding the camera a little bit down, that reflection isn't obscuring like the title or the author or anything like that. So I don't worry about it. I know there's a lot of sellers that want like the photos to be absolutely perfect and they use like the background removers and all of that kind of stuff. I don't do that. And one of the reasons, and this is just a personal preference, again, more than one way to skin a cat. I don't mind a few imperfections that it shows that I actually took the photo. I don't mind if my fingers are in it. That shows I really have this item in hand. Sometimes the pictures are so good they look like stock photos, and I'm not quite sure on eBay that that's what the buyers are always looking for. So I don't mind a little bit of imperfection that shows that, hey, I'm an individual seller. I have this item. Here it is. You can tell I've got it because my fingers are in the pictures and the pictures are not 100% perfect. If you go back and look at some of my listings, sometimes they're slightly askew. They're not even completely lined up. Those little bits of, in a day of AI where you always can't trust what you're seeing, those little imperfections may help convince a buyer that the item that they're looking at is legitimate. On a $10 or $12 book, it's probably not that big a deal. But if you're listing a $50, $80, $100, $200 book, that might make the difference between you getting a sale and not. So again, that's just my take. Let me know in the chat what you think. What Etsy promo do you use, if any? Unfortunately, I am in their offsite ad program. Interestingly, supposedly once you've crossed $10,000 in sales in a calendar year, the rate of that is supposed to go down from 15% to 12%. I've not found that to be the case. I'm still paying full pop, even though I've done more business than that. And I do, most months I will run like a 10% off sale on most, if not all, of my inventory over on Etsy. That's it. I don't do any of their ad campaigns. When they run some of their promotions where they'll do like a seasonal thing, a lot of times the discount they're asking for is a minimum of 20 or 25%. I'm not willing to go that high, especially on newer listings. And the way Etsy is set up, you can either specify individual listings or you can do everything on sale. You can't specify by, say, a date range or a price range. So I personally don't use any of those promotions because I don't want to sacrifice that much margin to Etsy. They get enough out of me with the offsite ad program. I just had one today that went through offsite ads and the fee was outrageous. You'll see it in next week's episode when I do my What Sold recap. Recommerce Dave says, yes, it's late or very early. Well, I appreciate you being here. Playroom, welcome. Good to see you. Den Decor Depot, good morning. Apparently the FEDBO IN, the business registration, is back with a 3/21 deadline. That is the beneficial ownership thing. It does not apply to like sole proprietors, and there's a few other exclusions. I'm a sole prop, so I'm not going to have to worry about it. But if you are registered as a corporation, an LLC, that kind of stuff, that program is back in play again. I've seen a couple of articles that say they may grant some leeway on the registration deadline. I don't know. It's Lord only knows. They may change their mind before the end of March, but you do want to look into that. What is the actual term for that? I'll have to think. I'm going brain dead at the moment. What about a photo of the book cover without the dust jacket? Sometimes I will do that, especially if it's a higher value book on, again, kind of a sub $40 or $50 book. I generally don't. If a customer reaches out and asks, I may take the dust jacket off and take a photo over in the warehouse. But I generally just take it as it sits without taking the dust jacket off and taking another photo. Do you include Library of Congress numbers on older books? Where do you put it? I do not. Generally, when I take a picture of that copyright page, if it has one of those designations, it's on that page, so it's in the photos. There is not a place, as far as I know, on eBay in the item specifics for that. You could create a custom field and put that in if you wanted. In 5+ years, I've never had anybody ask me for that number. So I just don't bother with it, but it is in the photos generally. Chuck Witt, custom SKU. Yes, that has been a lifesaver. So that field, you can do whatever you want with it. I've talked about before, what I've done is I choose to use it as my inventory field. So I've got literally probably thousands of boxes and each of them has an individual identifier, and that's what I use to put on the custom SKU field. So if somebody orders that particular book that we just did, in the sale information, it'll show me the custom SKU field, 239-9 or whatever it was I said that I was using, and I know right where to go for that particular box, and then I just find that item, pull it, put it in my IKEA bag, and get on to the next one. So it is an incredibly useful field. I know some sellers actually create their own like inventory line field. I figured I wasn't going to use that custom SKU field for anything else, so why not take advantage of it for inventory? Tusslebug, welcome. If you click the three dots in the upper right-hand corner of your phone, you won't have to scroll down to sell one like this. I will try that momentarily. I was not aware of that. Mel flips it. Could you repeat anything that goes to Mercari and Etsy again? So for me, because on Etsy you pay a listing fee, I think it's 20 cents every 4 months to renew a listing or to create a new listing. So because of that fee, and because a lot of my stuff is long tail, so it doesn't sell necessarily super fast, it may relist 2, 3, 4 times before ultimately it sells. I don't want to be doing that on like a $4 book where if it relists 5 times, I'm losing $1 in fees. So I just set a cutoff of $12.99 and higher for Etsy. And of course, it still has to qualify for whatever their normal vintage dates are and so on. So that's my cutoff over there. For Mercari, everything goes to Mercari. There's no cutoffs. That's why I have 9,800 listings or whatever over on Mercari, despite making 3 or 4 sales a week. It's free to list. There's no fees to do anything. It can just sit there forever, and it doesn't cost me anything. So I don't mind to take the 30 seconds to put those listings over there. Cameron D, any issues with broken bindings from using bubble mailers? I have not. If you go and you look at my feedback on my eBay shop, almost all of it refers to the quality of the packing and the shipping. I would not do just a regular poly mailer without bubbles. On really huge books, I'll use a poly mailer, but I will wrap the book in bubble wrap before I put it in there. And that, again, knock wood, I've sold 25,000 odd books or more, and I've never had a report of a book arriving damaged in a bubble mailer. Now, it's not to say that it won't happen, but I've never had that issue. When I do CDs, I also use a bubble mailer, and what I will do, I use the kind of the DVD sized bubble mailer. So it's a 10 by 6. I will cut a piece of cardboard roughly the size of the jewel case and put that on one side, and then fold the bubble mailer over on the other side. So it's got 2 layers of bubbles on one side and a layer of bubbles and a piece of cardboard on the other. And same thing, in 5+ years, I've had one instance where a jewel case got damaged in a bubble mailer shipped like that. So my experience with them has been fantastic. I think they're well worth the money. And it's obviously much less expensive than boxes for all that stuff. If it's a very expensive book or a bunch of them, I will use a box. I shipped a paperback book today that you'll see in next week's What Sold Recap. Somebody paid $93 for a paperback book. That was wrapped in bubble wrap, packed with newsprint, and shipped in a box. It's nearly $100 book. So for more expensive items, I will switch to boxes. Big Dre, a lot of YouTube reseller channels have been discussing the great eBay reseller exodus, including prominent resellers channels calling it quits. Any thoughts on this? I haven't had time to watch any of those videos. I've seen some of them pop up in my feed. I know we can have this discussion. There's a lot of frustration. Obviously, over the last couple of months on this channel, I have expressed a tremendous amount of frustration with like basic technical functions not working on eBay, on the regular. I mean, it's not just isolated incidents. I mean, it's daily, weekly, monthly, ongoing problems. They're raising the fees again, so they're charging you more and giving you less. And so I understand where it can be frustrating. I've not watched any of those videos, so I don't know. You can let me know in the chat kind of what they're saying their rationale is. I don't know if they feel like the market has been flooded. eBay obviously continues to do what appear they're about to announce. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, their quarterly results for fourth quarter. So we'll see what their business looked like. But over the last couple of years, it's not been growing, which obviously makes it harder for individual resellers to grow their business when the platform that you sell on is moving in the wrong direction. obviously on the YouTube side of it, it's a lot of extra work. Like I just announced yesterday, I'm going to take a brief hiatus from my Whatnot shows. Between doing my normal, shipping 100 to 125 items a week, listing 100 to 125 items a week, doing 2 YouTube shows, and preparing for 2 Whatnot shows. I've been doing that since October. I'm tired. It's a lot of work to keep up with, and sometimes the juice ends up not being worth the squeeze, and you got to take a step back. So I'm going to take at least a couple of weeks off from Whatnot. You pick and choose which is the least productive thing for you, or the least fun thing, or whatever the case may be. And if you want to cut something back, that's what's going to get cut back. For me right now, Whatnot is still, I enjoy it, but it's by far the least profitable, generating the least revenue, and is probably second highest workload in terms of getting ready for a show, then doing the show, and then shipping the stuff. So that's the one I'm going to take a break from. But I certainly understand where people just run out of steam doing all of those things. Recommerce Dave says, if you have a ton of non-vintage books, say $50 to $100 sale value, that has no solds in the last 3 years per Terapeak, would you list? Yes, I would. I absolutely would. I do that all the time. I find even sometimes vintage books, like yesterday, just as an example, and it's not, I didn't list it for a ton of money, but it was an alumni directory for the Missouri Military Academy from 1992. So it's a high school level military academy in Missouri. It was their 5th edition of their alumni directory. I didn't see any solds, I didn't see any comps, I didn't see anything, and anything listed anywhere. That's a weird enough item that I feel like eventually someone will come along and be like, oh my gosh, yes, I went there, that would be cool to have, and they'll buy it. And I only listed it for $12.99. I'm not trying to break the bank with it, but I don't hesitate to list even kind of low value items like that don't have a lot of competition or a lot of comps. Now, if there's a bunch of them out there, and that's to get off on a tangent. Let's say there's a book and I look it up on eBay and everybody's trying to sell it for $50, but there's no solds recently. I would then generally take the next step and I'll go look at like Abe books or Amazon, or maybe both, and see what are people trying to sell them for over there. And in a lot of instances, I'll find that the 1 or 2 people that have it on eBay are way, way overpriced in the market. They're trying to get $40, $50, $80 for a book that is readily available on Amazon or Abe Books for $19.99. And I will go ahead and list that item, but I'll list it at those lower comps. And obviously, if anybody comes to eBay looking for that, again, even though there's no track record that book has sold maybe in a number of years, if someone does, I'm probably going to be the one to sell it because I'm priced right in the market. I don't know how many people like shop Abe books, for instance, but it's a good double check on pricing, especially if you've got like a one-off item where somebody's asking for the moon and the stars for it, and then you go and look somewhere else and it's a $15 book. So it's a nice reality check that I do, that I think a lot of people probably don't. So Operating on eBay says, I always use my bright yellow measuring tape in all my photos to prove that I'm in possession of the item. That is another good way. And a lot of people do like having the dimensions. I rarely don't fill them in, and I don't, unless it's a small, like I've got over here on the shelf, like a bag full of these like little tiny books like this. In some cases, I'll put a tape measure next to this because it's going to be listed as a hardcover, and I want to make sure somebody knows that this is like a 3x4 book, not like a full-size hardcover. But on normal size listings, I generally will not do that. But that is, again, that's a good way to let people know you actually have it, because right there it is with a tape measure. Tamara Lynn, I'm doing some promotions that I received a credit on, Offsite and Priority. Both haven't been successful. $100 spent with no sales. That was my promotional credit. We have talked about that, regularly here. There are some categories that probably would do well with the pay-per-click advertising models. Most of what we're selling as resellers, in my opinion, just don't do well with that. Everyone that I have talked to, had they paid out of their own pocket to run those promotions, would have lost money. There was someone here, it was either last week or 2 weeks ago. I think they made 3 sales through the promotion. It would not have been near enough to recoup the $100 credit. Gosh, what was it? 6 months ago or so. I had Colorado Rewarn on. She had done an experiment using a similar program where she got $100 or $200 worth of credit to run. And she's a pretty big seller in the fashion category. And same thing. Had she paid for those clicks herself, she would have lost money. So good on you for trying it. And now you know yourself that that's not a program that works for you. I've said here hundreds of times probably, I use the promoted listings standard model that I only pay when someone makes a purchase. I don't mind to do that because it has the same effect of getting my listings seen by more people. I can see that in the metrics, and I don't mind to pay a little extra to capture that sale. But I don't want to be paying for random clicks. If I list, a really unusual $1,000 book, for instance, it's the only item that I am not actually even running on the standard promotion right now because there's only one other one listed and he's at $2,800. I don't want a bunch of like just random people that see that book and say, oh, I want to see what this is about. And you end up with hundreds or thousands of clicks of people who have no intention of buying that item. They're just curious about what a $1,000 book looks like. So that's why I don't use it. Tamberlin, yep, there you go. Just what I was saying. Prefer the flat general promotion. Den Decor Depot, I use the custom SKU the same way. It's on my packing slip and more. I print for every order. I'm curious how many people print and include packing slips with their orders. I do not actually do that. I just wrap the item in the newsprint, put it in the bubble mailer or the box, and ship it on its way. I'm not spending the money on the paper or the ink or whatever to put in a packing slip. I've never had it be an issue. I've had a few instances where a buyer said, please do not include a packing slip. Those are usually drop shippers. But yeah, I don't. Let me know in the chat if that's something that you do, and if so, why? What's your feeling on that? Media Picker saying hi in a meet. It must be a great meeting. I remember those days. JRKR 1964. Hello, good morning. Doing some listing of board games. I was tempted. There's a Facebook Marketplace listing for several hundred board games. And man, I look at that one every day and think, do I want to go get those? I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I keep looking at it. Den Decor, you are the Etsy king. Just got a big Etsy sale of 10 starting lineup figures on Etsy. There you go. Sometimes you just got to manifest these things into existence. I just had a big Etsy sale yesterday. It'll be in the What Sold recap coming up next week. It was 8 vintage books. The guy did not include his street address. So I went to pull and pack everything this morning. I got them all set up here, ready to go. I go to print his label. There's no street address. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? How do you forget that? We'll see how that goes. Will you show us your process of listing on Etsy sometime, or do you just use the cross-listing software? You got to do both, at least the way I'm doing it, because I just bulk cross-list. I'm not using List Perfectly to control my inventory, so I'm not using the auto delist or any of that kind of stuff. So I need to be able to be on the PC to do that. So next time we do a live from the main studio, remind me and I'll try to show you how I use List Perfectly. I think I've got an old video about that somewhere on the channel. You might look for that. Just do a search on my channel for List Perfectly. I may have shown that at one time, but essentially List Perfectly will transfer in some, but not all of the information into Etsy. It includes generally the pictures, the description, the title, the weight and the size of the package. It will not include some of the item specifics type stuff, and I'll just go through and add in those handful of things like the category and so on that I need to, and then go ahead and complete the listing. So, but remind me in a live when we're over in the main studio, and I'll walk you through that process, because I've almost always got some stuff ready to go. Like to put some books in bubble wrap and then a poly mailer. Yep. That I've seen a couple of sellers that's their standard shipping method. They wrap everything in bubble wrap and then put it in a regular poly mailer. I've seen mixed things. Some sellers say that's actually cheaper than buying bubble mailers. I like the bubble mailers personally. I've just always used them. So Den Decor, I'll give my take on the Exodus by Felicia. Honestly, if you set yourself up as a legit business, you figure out ways to keep growing. Yes, there are. We talk about it all the time here. You know, one, you got to just kind of keep grinding. February's not been a great month, I don't think, for anybody. I, again, don't know that that's, I don't think you would abandon your business based on a bad few weeks. Maybe. I wouldn't. February's not been fantastic, but so you got to double down on the things that you know work. Creating listings, create more listings, maybe add more photos, do the delist, relist, you know, run some promotions, run a sale, get on social media and try to hype. There's always things that you can do to try to improve your business. And I've said this before, and I try not to be like too disparaging of people, but I've talked about that it feels like to me there's two categories of sellers on YouTube. There are resellers who also happen to have YouTube channels. I think I'm in that category because I make 99.9% of my income from reselling. And then there are YouTubers who have found that reselling can be an interesting niche to be in. So they can go to yard sales and estate sales. They can do pallet buys and make a really cool video about breaking down a pallet and all the value that's there. But they're not really there to sell those things. They're just there to make a video about that thing that is then profitable. And at some point, that you end up with a garage full or a warehouse full of stuff that you haven't figured out how to sell because you've used it just to create content. So it's one of the reasons I always say to kind of be cautious about where you take advice from, because not everybody who is a reseller on YouTube is a reseller first. Some of them are YouTubers first, and the golden days of COVID, if you want to call it that, where reselling was pretty easy, are done. This is hard work now, and if you got into it from that angle, I can see where you might be really frustrated right now. Den Decor goes on, yes, the site issues hurt, but volume helps overcome them. Differentiate by shipping fast, packing well, being responsive to offers. Well said, my friend. But I'll trade working 60 hours for myself versus 40 hours from someone else every day and twice on Sunday. Absolutely. The flexibility of this, I've gotten back into cycling. Yesterday it was like 60 degrees at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so I took off and went for a bike ride. If I was working in traditional retail, I would have still been at work. I would have missed the opportunity to get out. So that flexibility and the ability to, it's just me. If something goes wrong, I know who did it. You know, that not having to get 19-year-old kids to do what you want them to do in order for your business to be successful. There's a lot of value in all that. Ms. Lachey says, cross-checking prices on other sites is very helpful. Sometimes the eBay listers are delusional and just following the next guy on price. Yep, you'll see that. 2 or 3, they're all huddled around one price, and you go look at sold comps and there aren't any. That should be the first clue that buyers, at least, find that price to be out of the market. And then you have opportunities to do that other research and see maybe where the market is. Now, maybe it's just an item that nobody's ever going to want. But if you're way overpriced, you have no opportunity, in my opinion. Mel Flips It says, I sold a paper Russian ballet book, no solds, way overpriced everywhere because rare. I sold in 24 hours for 20 bucks. and was happy because I paid 10 cents. And that's the other thing, knowing what you will be comfortable making on an item. I talk about all the time, you know, my bulk buys, 40 cents a book, 20 cents a book, 50 cents a book, maybe $1 here and there. I don't have to get $100 a copy to make really good money. You know, a sale at $20 when I paid 20 cents for it is an astronomical gross margin. And as Den Decor Depot just said, make it up in volume, sell a bunch of them, and all of a sudden you're making pretty good money. But you've got to be cognizant of where the market might actually be. Recommerce Dave says, do you think the technical issues you encounter are more mobile oriented? I have very little issues using the desktop version, maybe a legacy issue of how old eBay's software is. I've talked about that as well. I feel like in many cases, eBay historically has tried to stack new features on top of old software, which causes a lot of downstream problems. I feel like at least more recently, that's not the case. It is, some of these updates are new code, new software, new code base. And I do see sellers complain that there are issues on desktop as well. I had somebody reached out yesterday with a comment that on desktop, she's only able to upload one photo at a time. And then when she has multiple photos uploaded, she's not able to reorder them anymore on desktop. Mobile does tend to have more problems because there are way more versions of operating systems on mobile. We just talked about a couple of weeks ago, the most recent eBay update, which locked people out of their Android devices on eBay if they were on whatever it is, Android 10 or older. But with that, I mean, even at 10, they're on version 16, I think now. So you've got 5 or 6 different versions of Android, all of which have probably been tweaked by the individual manufacturers of the phone, Samsung and HTC or whoever. They all have their own little tweaks to the software. It's, to be fair to eBay, that's a lot to try to keep up with. But yes, I think it's probably more prevalent on mobile. JRKR, I started using offsite promotions with the 50% off deal, and it started off well the first 3 days, and then it started to not be worth it, so I paused it. They wanted me to spend over $20 a day. Right, there, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but the way those programs are designed to work, you've got to have like massive amounts of visibility and massive amounts of clicks. But we as kind of the normal resellers are not selling items that we have, say, hundreds or thousands of, where we can absorb hundreds or thousands of clicks to get tens or dozens of sales. We've got a one-off book or a one-off blouse or whatever it might be, and taking a bunch of random clicks on that item and then not having it sell is, in my opinion, again, is just spending good money after bad. Chuck Witt says, whenever I buy used books, CDs, and DVDs, I always check Amazon and eBay. I find eBay is always the best deal. Sometimes Amazon will even say item not available, and eBay will have multiple listings. And that's because there's sellers like me that don't sell on Amazon because there's too many hoops to jump through. In some cases, there's too much competition. All these sites are kind of a race to the bottom anyway, but I find eBay to be much better for the types of books I'm selling. Big Dre says, overall, it seems the ones quitting just aren't making enough money despite putting in the same amount of work and investment in inventory as full-time sellers. Yeah, and again, that goes back to you make the money on the buy. If you're acquiring large amounts of stuff, again, with the idea that you just want to be able to create content off of it, you've got to have a backup plan. If that video doesn't go viral and make you a bunch of money, you got to be able to make the profit on the stuff. And if you're overpaying for a pallet of stuff that you end up either not selling at all or not selling profitably, you can find yourself in trouble really quickly. Chuck Witt says, for media mail, are you allowed to include a packing slip? As I thought you're not allowed to include correspondence. A packing slip would be fine because it relates to the sale of the item, but you can't include correspondence. I couldn't put in like a personal I'm sure people do it all the time. But I couldn't include theoretically a letter to the buyer. Um, it's got to be just the item itself. Media mail is probably, I think it's safe to say, the most widely defrauded mail service. It's, I think, one of the reasons that the price has gone up as extraordinarily as it has over the last several years. People are, I've made the comment here, I received a hat once that was shipped by media mail. And the merger of the pricing between that and Ground Advantage in many cases, I think is an opportunity for the post office to try to eliminate some of that fraud. It's very hard to police. There's so much media mail being sent. They do reserve the right to open any and every media mail package, to inspect it, to make sure that what's in there is actually qualifies for it. But they don't have the manpower to actually even deliver the mail on time right now, let alone inspect all those packages. So, but a packing slip is fine. This could be it. I never put in a packing slip. I spend time packing good and ship away. It's been over 12 years with no issues. Only put one in if a buyer asks for an invoice. Yep, that is my theory as well. Every now and then on Etsy, I had one yesterday that it was a gift and they had put a gift note in it. So I printed that so that I would capture the gift note and I put that in the package. But other than that, I do not. Packing Slip and More has a QR for my store. Bought a cheap laser printer. It costs less than a penny per sheet. Also use the laser printer to print directly on envelopes for standard envelope. There you go. Part-time reseller, no complaints because my store sales are 100% passive income as I've not listed since December. Good for you. But I've heard sellers complain of 0 sales for weeks. I hear that too. A lot of times you go look at their stores and they've got 20 items listed, and I don't, you have to have realistic expectations. I talk about all the time on this show, the odds of selling any one book, for instance, are fairly low, but the odds of selling several books a day, if you've got 11,000 plus listed, are pretty good. If selling that book that we just listed is a lottery. There's no sales. I didn't go to Terapeak, but there's no recent sales on this book. So it might take a while to sell this. But if I list 20 more books before the day is out, there's a good chance by the end of the week, at least one, if not more of those, will sell. So you've got to be realistic about what the numbers need to be. You see, especially new sellers, they get in and they're like, I've listed 10 items and nobody's bought anything. Amazon has literally billions probably of items to sell tens of thousands an hour. I mean, that's obviously a huge scale, but in my case, I've got 11,000 plus listings to sell 100 a week. If you've got 10, realistically, you're probably not going to sell something every day or maybe even every week unless you continue to add listings, or you've already got, like in Dendicor or Big Dre's case, you've got a big inventory already listed. So Recommerce Dave, always include an invoice unless asked not to by a drop shipper. It has my SKU, so I use it to pick the items. It also shows postage service the buyer has paid for. When I pick, I do it right off my phone. I don't know if I've got any, let's see here. Just for giggles. And I've only got one here, but I will take, I don't know, again, if you're watching on your phone, it's probably hard to see, but if you look at that listing, I'm in my sold orders on my mobile. So I just take my phone over to the warehouse and I'll have a list here of everything I've sold. And it's got, says the buyer paid, has the item title, then it has my custom SKU. This particular item, the Aldous Shakespeare Macbeth from 1909, is in bin T15. So I know exactly where that is. It shows that it's paid and it's ready to be shipped. Then when I get ready to ship, when I'm picking it, it doesn't matter to me what shipping method they've selected. 99% of my stuff is media mail anyway, so it's pretty easy. But then when I go into Pirate Ship to pull it, I know exactly how to ship it. So I don't print packing lists. I don't print the individual invoices and then pull from those. I just take my phone with me and everything will be right on there. Let's see, pop-up desktop chat. Help is in Chinese now. There's some weird stuff going on. I've got a site that I go to pretty regularly that all of a sudden is all in French. It's strange. Media Picker says, I still put a business card in with Media Mail and haven't had any issues to this point. Knocks on wood. And again, the odds of any one package getting inspected are almost none. All things being equal, it is a numbers game. If you price competitive, generally you'll get sales. I've only had one day so far this year with no sales, says Brandon, Media Picker. Yep. All those basic things that I harp on all the time that you probably get tired of me here talking about. Take lots of pictures, do a good product description, do a good title, fill out the item specifics, price it competitively for the condition. Again, that book we listed a moment ago, dust jacket's in pretty rough shape. I'm not trying to get $30 for it because I know it's in pretty mediocre condition. So being realistic about what you have, pricing it competitively to the market, which may be broader than just the site you're trying to sell it on. To go back to what we were talking about earlier, you got a couple of sellers on this very book trying to sell it for $28.95 when there's no sales shown at all at any price, and there are listings for the same book, albeit without a dust jacket, for $5. $29 is going to be a tough sell. Maybe you're willing to sit on it and hold on to it for a very long time for that one buyer who wants that particular item. But I always try to bear in mind that, like I did with that one, I put mine at $12.99, which puts me kind of in the middle of that range. And knowing that there are potentially always going to be other sellers coming along that'll look at my price and list theirs for $10.99 and then $8.99. And so you gotta really think long term, kind of also about your pricing strategy. I said we were going to do some listings today, and so let's do another. We've been on the chat bus here for this entire time, which I appreciate very much, but I know there were a couple people that really wanted to see this process. So here at the end, let's do another one. I feel bad. If you watched for an hour to see a second listing, you are my hero. Let's do this one. This is head hunting in the Solomon Islands. Oh, I'm butchering that. Close enough. Let's see. I'm going to go with antiquarian and collectible on this one. And again, I'm going to look. Mine has a dust jacket. So I'm going to kind of scroll through these listings. First one I see with a dust jacket is at $10 plus shipping. The shipping amount looks like it's probably right. Might be a little low, but it's going to be in the ballpark. That dust jacket is probably not in as good a condition as mine. See, mine's got some discoloration, but there's no real damage on it. Let's look at one more. There's one, $4.99, but $10.52 for shipping, which doesn't make any sense. $10.97 with shipping. So in that $10 range is probably about the right number. So let's just find one here that I want to use. Let's do this one. It's got a nice looking title. I was going to do this. Let's see here. Ah, look at that. Whoever said that, you are my hero. That's like 2 seconds of listing of savings. That's outstanding. I did not know that. See, that's why I like doing these. I've said before, I appreciate the community here and how everybody answers each other's questions and gives tips and advice, and you learn stuff from each other. That will be invaluable for me. I had no idea that you could do that. Outstanding. Let's take some photos. Again, there's a little bit of a chip, but nothing nearly as severe as was on that one listing we looked at. I will take a picture of that just so that people know. A lot of these, again, were $9.99, $10.99. That's where I'm going to target this one. I'll probably do $9.99 with a acceptable offer of $8, which will put me, I think, in pretty good position. This is a book that I have had previously and have sold previously, so I know it will sell. It may take a little while, but this one, I'm pretty sure I've sold a couple of these. There are pictures. I always try to capture if there are any illustrations in the book so that people know beyond the item specifics and whatever I put in the description. They actually can see some examples of said illustrations. And then again, the dust jacket at the back. So that one got 16 photos. I know some sellers will take pictures of the books like on an angle rather than straight on. I don't think either one is right or wrong. I just started doing them straight on and left it that way to be consistent across all my listings. I am going to make a couple of changes to that title. This is a hardcover with its dust jacket. It is from 1942. And it is illustrated. So I added a few more things into my title that, in theory at least, should make it a little more attractive. Let's get into these specifics. That is correct. Is it Macmillan? Yes, it is. It's a hardcover, first edition, illustrated. Mine has a dust jacket, so I want to tick that box in the item specifics. It is an original. They have the region here as Solomon Islands. I'm going to leave that because that's where the story is set. So I'm okay with that. They already have the ISBN does not apply, so all I need is my custom SKU, which I think is 9. Yes. Paste in my title. I'm going to add in the publisher and the condition. I'm going to call this acceptable, bordering on good, because it is overall, for a book that's 80 plus years old, this is in pretty good shape with some shelf wear and minor damage to dust jacket. Light tanning of pages. Again, those pages do have a little bit of discoloration as shown. If I can get that N in there. How I'm going to ship it. Go to my price. I'm going to do $9.99. I do allow offers with a minimum offer amount. Again, some people will do to auto accept offers at a certain amount. If you do that, you're going to see all the kind of lowball offers. And for my business, I've got 11,000 listings. I don't want to have to see and or respond to dozens of $1 offers on $25 books. So I always set a minimum. I don't see those lowball offers. Am I missing maybe a few opportunities to sell something? If somebody offers me $7.99 on this book and I'm at $8, I'm not going to see that offer. Yeah, I'm probably missing a few, but for my mental health, I'd rather not deal with all those offers. So that's how I have chosen to do that. We need to weigh it. This is going to be right on the bubble, I think. It's 1 pound, 12.6 ounces. So we'll do 1 pound, 14. That's going to fit in a 12 by 9. It's about 2 inches tall. And that one is good to go. And again, that's kind of a quick walkthrough of the kind of research, listing, and photo process. Again, I've got everything set up here. I'll come down every morning with a tub of books, my photo station, my scale, and my inventory list. And I can, when I'm not responding to tons of chats, I can do 10, maybe 12 in an hour or 90 minutes, depending on how much research has to be done. And that's an assembly line, quick and convenient, fairly efficient for me. Your process may vary. If you list on desktop, a lot of people I know do like bulk. They'll take bulk photos, and then they'll take those and create drafts, and then they'll go back later and finish them. Whatever process works for you. This is, again, just to show you one example of how someone is doing it, and you can then decide, is there something here that's useful for your particular business? Let's get back in here to the chat one last time. Den Decor says, I appreciate the exchange of business ideas. I'm going to try that 3-dot trick today. Yeah. Now I've got to break a 5.5-year habit, which might be problematic a bit, but that's super cool. Thank you again for the tip. Den Decor says, I've been using the AI photo tool heavily on sports card with solid success. And again, that's a category I think where it would be particularly helpful. Is that the listing tool where you just take a picture of the card and then it populates as much information as it can about that card? I've had some pretty good feedback from viewers on that particular tool. For the headhunting, should you put in the title headhunting 1 word and headhunting 2 words in the heading in case a buyer doesn't know to put it in as 1 word? I suppose you could. eBay is generally pretty good about things like that, capturing all of them and showing them, even if it's in there kind of one way and the search is the other. I can't remember. There was something I was looking for yesterday that I put it in exactly as it was on the book, and a bunch of people had listed it the other way. So again, same kind of thing, 2 words that either they had split up or they combined. I don't remember the details of it, but when I did the search, I was seeing all of those anyway. For me, again, I'm a stickler, I think, for the accuracy of the title. And if the title is 1 word, that's how I put it in. And I try to then capture more things that I think would be appealing to the buyer. The book is illustrated. The book's got its dust jacket. It's a book club edition, whatever the case may be, rather than trying to overthink the search algorithm. That, again, that's just me. I don't think putting that in would necessarily be wrong, but it's not something that I have chosen to do. Chuck Wick says, now it's time to sell. Yes, we are at about that hour mark. Remember to click that thumbs up. Thank you. I appreciate that. If you haven't already, please do that. Den Decor says, yes, the tool eBay has, I can list up to 200 to 300 cards an hour, depending on how much information is missing. That is outstanding. Very, very cool. Recommerce Dave should consider doing Pomodoro style live YouTube sessions while you are listing. 30-minute listing, no talking. Then 10 minutes of chat, rinse and repeat. Absolutely. Yeah, because I didn't get nearly as much listing as I was hoping to do today for people. But thank you for that. I'm too chatty. Mel Flips It, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate that very much. Guys, it is time to sell. We're a little over an hour. I appreciate you all coming out and sharing your knowledge with me and vice versa. I hope you got something out of today's show. If you did, like they said, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. If you just happen to stumble on this and you're not a subscriber to the channel and you weren't put off by my take on YouTube resellers, consider subscribing. Join us. My next show will be next Monday, the regularly scheduled episode of the podcast with the reselling news and a What Sold segment. Next Wednesday may be a show. Next Friday, if I'm not mistaken, next Friday is the next eBay seller check-in. So we'll have some updates on that. And then the following Wednesday, I'm going to have Max, Common Ground Finds, back on the show to talk about book selling on eBay and whatnot. So mark your calendars. That's 2 weeks from today. Max, Common Ground Finds will be back on the show to talk about book sales on whatnot and eBay. And I'm sure we'll have some conversation about the eBay seller update as well. Den Decor says, thank you as always. Thank you as well. Again, thanks everybody for coming out and participating. And we'll see you next time.